Hey guys, StarCraft here, and well, the poll was in, and you guys want me to talk about Dan Jurgens? I'm going to talk about Dan Jurgens. Why wouldn't you guys want me to do it? I mean, some people kept saying, oh, he's the only real good guy on that list. Okay, to a degree, one could say that. I still argue Tom King, who came in second place, I might add, barely in his own way, is still a great writer, and he deserves a spot on there as well. The other two, I can see why people didn't want me to talk positively about them. I'll get to them eventually, but probably not anytime soon. You guys made that very clear. But Dan Jurgens, he has been a class act, and he is, I know I said I had Jeff Johns and Scott Snyder as my favorite creators, but Dan is in a totally different category altogether. He has not only earned his spot as one of my favorites, he's also earned a spot as one of those people I am guaranteed to either buy anything he's working on or look up anything he's worked on and get it. Prime example, I not only got the first of his Thor run omnibus, I got both of them, collecting the entire thing. I kept looking forward to it all. I've heard that some people consider it a dork age. I don't agree from what I've heard about it and what I've read so far. Yeah, I haven't finished it yet. Katie was it. Come on. This many. But yeah, it's very good, very creative, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Dan Jurgens, he's one of those creators that and I say this in the good way, one of those rare times in a good way, hasn't changed a bit. And there's been so many creators out there who are, the way they started and the way they've become, things have changed, be it their writing style, their art style, their politics, things like that. Dan, he has not changed except for the better. He has improved himself as a writer, as a creator, but at the same time though, his style fits. Prime example, some creators, when they leave a character, they leave, and if they ever do come back, they come back, their writing style is very different, or they're coming up with different stories. Two good examples, Mark Waid on The Flash, and Peter David on The Hulk. Peter David came back in The Hulk. That was it was not like he was picking up where he was left off. Granted, he was brought in for certain other reasons, but it just felt different. A bit off in some regards. Mark Waid on The Flash. He left, then he came back with a different take on it. He came back to do Wally as a dad with older kids, focusing on the family life, yes. But again, something felt off. Like he went away, came back, with a different writer coming up with different sensibilities. Dan Jurgens, on the other hand, he has come back to Superman time and again, and at each time, he adjusts himself. That's what makes him work. He adjusts himself so that the character actually, even if it's like, he adjusts himself to take everything else that came before him into account, moving forward and just telling good stories. He may expand on stuff, but he's not going out of his way to expand stuff. He plays with the toys that's given. He may create new toys. He may bring some of his old toys in, which can get annoying on some cases. How many times are you going to keep bringing back Cyborg Superman? I know he's your creation. Kidding. I love every one of those stories. But yeah, it's just, Dan is, again, he's a workhorse. Again, in the best possible way. But he does, I'm not saying if he's working what he's given, that's it. No. He is still a great creator. I mean, prime example. Superman Aliens. This is such a good book. This one is one of those great that he actually got the crossover going, and it was in continuity. Don't believe me? During in Superman Transform, this is by the time when he was the writer. He wasn't an artist. I think he was doing artwork at Marvel at the time, but he was still on as a writer. But he had Ron Friends on as the artist. I think again, some of these things don't always get things right, but hold on a second. Yes. Right there. See? Referenced. And then in this case, well, Ron Friends came up with the design for the new costume. We had a chance of Dan drawing it as well. You gotta have that, and that was very good. But here's the other thing about Dan Jurgens. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. I could gush about everything about Dan, but that's what this whole thing's about. A spotlight of everything about the character and creator. Well, first to wrap it up, this one though was still very good. Attempted to introduce a possible new Kara Zor-El but still without having her be from Krypton. But because that was the stipulation back then. But never went anywhere. Crying shame, but it was still a good done in one for what it was worth. It did get a sequel, but that was someone else entirely involved. But here's the thing about Dan. I probably would have gotten into comics if it wasn't for him and the others on Superman. Why? One of the first comics I ever bought was a couple of random issues that my great uncle had given to my grandmother on my mom's side. Both of them were on my mom's side, and I found them. Every time I would go over to her place, I would look at it, and some of those issues, some of them were random, some of them were like from the new universe at Marvel, things like that. But some of them, I should point out, were from this World Without a Superman, and that's why I earned my love of Superman. Even though he was dead, I read all this stuff, and I just felt like the Superman guy is very important. Now, I don't know if I saw the movie by that point, but eventually I did, and connect the dots and everything. But yeah, I just loved it. And then eventually I got the entire trilogy in trade paperback. These aren't the original ones I got. Long story short, parents tried to teach me a lesson, threw them out, ended up forgetting to take them out of the trash. I had to get some new ones later on. But this is also still one of his best work, because he's the man that killed Superman. He's the one who wrote that and who drew that issue, and and he's the one who came up with his killer, Doomsday. I mean, just look at nothing but splash pages. And speaking of which, Doomsday is also one of my favorite villains. Not all-time echelon, but still one of my favorites. And I also got this bad boy that collects about all of his appearances, the 2 miniseries that Dan had done to try and expand on it. Well, first give him a backstory, then deal with him once and for all, and then bring him back and deal with him with Brainiac, which eventually actually led to Brainiac becoming instead of being a man, becoming a more machine, which I actually like. Then there was other creators other stories that were collected in here, but it's those two that are the main ones. And the Year 1 annual that was done specifically to try and fill in the gap between leaving Krypton and him ending up on Earth. Again, very good stuff. And seriously, again, there's so much stuff from Dan that I could show about, like, that I even own. Again, this is the case of me going on my way to get stuff that he's worked on, like Armageddon 2001. Yeah, that fiasco. He worked on it. And he's one of those people who actually, if he worked on something, he will keep working with it. He will not drop those toys just because it didn't do so well. And he actually salvaged a lot of the stuff that was in here. Like, he's the one who came up with, the stuff with Wave Rider and all that stuff. He's been using Wave Rider ever since, because he created a guy. He's like, he's one of my guys. I'm going to keep using him. But here's the other thing about Dan, is that anytime they focus on that era of Superman, they always bring him back, obviously. But, like, these 2 issues of DC Legacy done by the late, great Len Wein. You had Dan doing the artwork on both of these ones, because they focus on Doomsday. But he also does the Nightfall stuff as well. And the other thing I would say about Dan is that he's one of those guys where you could put any inker on him and it really doesn't hurt his stuff, like, at all. Like, you have Kevin Nolan, who inked him on this one in Superman Aliens. Very different, but you can still tell there's Dan stuff in there. I mean, okay, Kevin Nolan can be a bit overpowering, and it does a little bit in this one. I mean, there's some cases where it looks a little weird, like this bit with all the aliens. Yeah, that looks a little funky, but overall though it's great. And as a writer, Dan, he's one of those great guys who's one of the best writer, artist, double ups, but he doesn't have to be. Like, he comes out with such good ideas, like his Batmite miniseries. This one was just plain hilarious. It was just weird, funky, funny, zany, all over the top place. Don't know if it's continuity or not, but who cares, because he was writing Batmite. Because that's the other thing is, he is one of the definitive Superman creators. And I'll be getting into his Rebirth stuff, don't worry. He writes so many others. He has created so many others. He has written so many others. Like, those of you who loved Issa Van Sciver, and when he did his stuff with Fury of Firestorm, the Nuclear Man, and Men, well, who took over after Ethan left and Tony Harris left and all that stuff, and they changed it? Dan again. And it didn't last too long, like 7 or 8 issues, issue 13 to issue 20, but what he did do was also very good. And to the point where he even worked on stuff with Captain Atom, the New 52 Captain Atom. And he brought in some other stuff. In fact, it was Dan who kind of gave, if I recall right, he's the one who kind of helped give us what eventually would become the current version of Killer Frost. He got the ball rolling anyway. Sterling Gates gave her the backstory, but yeah, he got things going for her. Then, of course, you can't talk about Dan without talking about one of his best creations. Probably one of the last great DC long stay creations that everyone knows about, everyone adores. Booster Gold, the hero you never heard of. The greatest hero you never known, I mean. And seriously, it was Booster. I love Booster. Booster's one of my favorite characters as well. And of it's all thanks to Dan. Because when Dan handles him, the way Dan created him, Booster is not he's a guy who's a bit of a jerk, a bit of an ego, but doesn't define him. He's still wanting to help people, even if he might try to make a buck out of it, but he's not gonna let that drive him. And some creators afterwards kept saying that's all he's about. That he will sell off his Ted Kord's mother's ring just to get extra money. No. Booster is not like that at all. Booster is just, he's Booster. He's trying to be a hero. Still letting his greed get done, but given his backstory, you kind of understand that. And he's the kind of guy who just wants to try and help, but he's always going about it the wrong way, which I will admit is one of the few things with Tom King that I think he really does not get. I mean, Booster might try to change history to help, but he would never, under Dan Jurgens' pen, think it was a good idea to try and, let's have Bruce have his parents back. No, even he would know, nope. That would mean no Batman. He would know better than that. And if he actually tried it, Rip Hunter would then be like, Booster, what the hell are you doing? Again, I'm probably going over everything I have of Dan here, but can you blame me? I mean, you also have his current stuff with Batman Beyond. Another example of him doing with something that, he didn't create, but he's done wonderful jobs with. Especially ever since Batman 25, he's been doing one hell of a Joker story in this. It has been so good on that regard as well. It's been, I'm just geeking out, but here's the other thing about Dan is, so many times if there's other projects that need someone that's like a mainstay DC creator, they'll bring him in, like in the Kamandi challenge. He did one of the issues, issue 7, and that tells you that he's one of their go-to. He's one of those like, we need something, we need someone, each and every person. Let's get Dan. And another example of his good writing, even though it ended up not selling, because that's the other thing. Sometimes, unfortunately, he's not a big seller. That's one of the unfortunate things. I'm glad Batman Beyond's been doing very well, but there are times where he's on a book and he's writing what he wants to write, but it's not a guarantee, like huge, like selling off the sales on fire, like Justice League International. Great book. One of the best of the New 52, but it ended up not selling well. And that's a shame. That is one of the crying shames about Jurgens, that a lot of stuff just doesn't sell, and he's usually brought in for a project, like when he did Green Lanterns to wrap everything up. He was pretty much brought in just to close the door and set up some things for Grant Morrison's run, and also resolve something that kind of Bendis kind of messed up, in that he left the Cyborg Superman, Jurgens left the Cyborg Superman during his Rebirth run in the Fortress in issue 999. What does Bendis do? Blows it up! So, Jurgens decides, not gonna let Henshaw stay dead. I'll bring him back and put him back as a Lantern villain. And that was the first time Jurgens has written Henshaw as a Lantern villain, because he became a Lantern villain when Jurgens wasn't working on the character. But another case of, and here's another example of Jurgens being brought in to work on something when you had all these great Superman writing artists. The 3 issues during Infinite Crisis, where basically Earth 2 Superman and Earth 1 Superman are changing each other's lives. Yeah, you obviously had to do when you did Doomsday. you had to have Dan Jurgens draw that bit. And again, so good. You know, that whole story was great. But here's another case of Jurgens with passion projects you really see him put his heart into. The Superman Fantastic Four. Yep, I got one of these. So worth it. Once I found it, I knew I had to buy it. And good deal too. $10 only. That was the regular cover price. And seriously, just look at this beast. Look at this. And the whole point of it is that you have, well, Hank Henshaw, back to him again. He was part of a Fantastic Four kind of XP versions of the characters, where he was the Reed Richards. As the other four members of his four, they tragically died. It was basically taking the Fantastic Four, but twisting it very morbidly. But in this case, you decided to be, let's take Superman. He gets made the Herald of Galactus. Let's take Reed off the board and have Hank have to work with Susan, Johnny, and Ben to try and save him. Kind of writes itself in a way, but it's still a great story to tell out of all of this. And great artwork, and again, huge! You see how big that was? But let's get into, before I wrap this all up, because I can go on and on more about Dan, but one other thing that proved why when he came back to the character, he did very well, and people adored him for it, and that's his entire rebirth stuff with Superman. Good Lord, this is just so one of the best he's done with the character since, well, he last worked on him. And this show proved why he's one of the best to handle Superman, because he gets all the characters. He gets Lex, he gets Lois, he gets Clark, he gets even, obviously he created a character, he gets Jonathan. Now, I do have a copy of the wedding album where they got married somewhere around here, and I wanted to show it off at this one point, is that when you see like this, Dan has drawn some of the most important moments of Superman's life. He drew his death, he drew the pages with the wedding, and he was the one who drew the birth of Jonathan, his son. Yeah, so when you think about it, he's been the one to draw so many. And then when he did the Superman, Lois, and Clark, this showed in the 8 issues they did this, people wanted it back. I don't know if this was just to get things going or just to test the water, but if it tested the waters, it proved that this was selling just as well, if not better, than some of the Superman books at that time. Probably helping prove to DC, maybe Jeff Johns used it saying, see, they want this Superman back. And Bendis, why are you undoing all this stuff that is proved just so you could do things how you want? Dan, if you're watching this, you can have what your opinion is on Bendis. I am not happy. I'm sticking through because Superman's my guy, but I'm just not liking how he's undoing so much of the stuff that you and Tomasi built up. But still, even when he wrote Superman coming back, he still kept in mind, at least in this case, this was a Superman from another universe who knew things differently, and he played with that. And then you just kept going on great stories until eventually, once we got to Superman Reborn and things were put on track and everything was re-merged again, Superman was mostly the same way, but you can tell there was a little slight differences because they've combined the two Superman. And again, that's how he is. He writes these characters just so great. And yet, he doesn't try to rock the boat too much. But again, what does it say that my Superman 900's not around here, and my Superman 700 and Action Comics 900 are boxed away, but when you had Action 1000 and those other Centennial issues as well, you needed Dan. There was no way around it. You needed to make sure Dan Jurgens was involved because he's a seminal creator. You need him to do this stuff. And that's a lot of what I have. I have a whole bunch more stacked away. There's a lot of stuff I don't have that I do want to still get, like his Titans run. But yeah, this is just me just showcasing so much about the stuff that I do have and how much I just love his work. This guy is one of the best in the industry. Hands down, deserves more work, deserves more recognition beyond, because that's the other thing is, he's one of those guys who, besides the death of, killing off Superman, that you have people in the mainstream besides beyond that, they're not gonna, and maybe Booster, they're not gonna know him very well, unfortunately. It's not like Scott Snyder or Jeff Johns where they're become more and more recognized. And again, that really sucks. Because it feels like he's one of the biggest names. He's someone like Booster in that regard. He's one of the greatest creators you've never heard of. Or most have never heard of. Or never known. And maybe that's fitting for him. I don't know. But that's all I really wanted to say about the guy. Wanted to gush and just give this little big spotlight towards him. And I hope he keeps doing great work. I know he's going to be off of Batman Beyond soon. And that's a crying shame, but he's going to be taking over Nightwing. I'll be at least checking those out. Like I said, I'm almost guaranteed to buy them maybe afterwards. Money is how it is, depends how that is, but I will be looking forward to it at the very least. And what else can I say? Great man, great work. That's all I gotta say. Catch y'all later. Take care.